know Cap was a little limited in how close he could get this mic to his mouth, so I'm going to try to do a little better job there. Obviously, thank you, Cap, for the kind words. I'm going to wrap up with you, though, so I'll be back to you. I want to start first by thanking all those that were involved in the selection committee of how someone gets nominated and elected to the Hall of Fame. It's obviously a great honor to be named into any Hall of Fame. I know when I was a young kid, I went on a trip. My parents will remember this. We went to Cooperstown, and we visited the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is, it's every little leaguer's dream to be at the Baseball Hall of Fame. I vividly remember looking at all those bronze plaques of all the greatest players of all time, and I turned to my dad, and I remember this, and I said, "Dad, someday I'm going to make it to the Hall of Fame, and I'm going to give a speech at the Italian Citizens Club of Beverly." And today's that day, and so thank you so much to all those who made today happen. I walked in and the lights were a little dim, and I said, "Geez, thank God the Peabody champions are here, because all those bald heads are making this place a little bit lighter." So that's pretty good. I do tend to be very long-winded when I speak, especially publicly in these types of forums. But in an effort to share the stage with my fellow inductees, I'm going to do my best to keep this as quick as possible. I'm going to be time efficient. We're going to get everybody in and out of here as fast as possible so everyone can be with their families, which was always the game plan every time we played North Reading, and that seemed to work out pretty well. I do also know that if things start to drag with this speech, I know somewhere out there, wherever the heck he is, walking his dog on some Florida beach, Deeds is going to be out there like this, getting himself ready to come in. Every time it'd be 5 innings in, I'd have 1 hit, 1 base runner all day, and I'd throw 2 balls to the leadoff guy in the 6th inning, and I'd catch the ball from JJ, and I'd walk back out towards looking to center field, see Deeds out there like this. Like the next best option was the 46-year-old center fielder who threw about 68 miles an hour. For some reason, he thought he was the next guy up. Tonight I'm being inducted with 6 other great men who all contributed a lot to their respective teams and obviously to the league as a whole. Congratulations to Kevin, Kamal, Keith, Steve, and of course the legend himself, Papa Bly, Jeff Blydell. I grew up in Nahant, and I had Jeff actually as a gym teacher first. Obviously I became great friends with Jason and Chris, and then had the opportunity to play for him in Little League a little bit. He was a great coach. He's had a major impact on the baseball careers of many kids on the North Shore, but he's also credited around the league with creating and managing the best Swampscott Sox junior varsity team of all time, the North Shore Phillies. I would like to personally thank and recognize each other inductee. Rooney, I really don't know you very well, but obviously you did some good things in your time in the league. I'll let other people speak highly of you. Coop, we played Legion ball together, obviously a fellow Swampscott guy. Was always a very, very tough out. I love seeing your family at the games. I know I had a very supportive family at my games as well. My parents were always there, and whether the champions kicked our ass that night or we beat you guys, I know your parents, every time I walked by you guys always gave me a hello and said great game. So obviously Coop comes from a great family, and I'm happy for you. But Seath was that pitcher that, like Cap said, I was a pitcher only. I never hit. They never let me get a bat. And he was that guy that we would play, and I'm sitting there as the opposing pitcher going, how do we not have 20 runs right now? How are we not lighting this guy up? But I also never had a bat in my hand. He was also doing something right. So tip of the cap to you, Seath. I never really appreciated that you were that good, but obviously let's look at those stats and realize that you were. Kamal, I love seeing Kamal at the ballpark. Where are you, Kamal? I love seeing this dude at the ballpark. And the best is, like, there's nothing better than watching Kamal run across the outfield and just see that ponytail flowing in the wind. I mean, that thing's amazing. He is one of the nicest guys in the league, and I'm happy for you to come on. I know you've obviously put a lot of time and sacrificed a lot to do what you've done for that team. Steve Considine, who I actually played college baseball with. Steve was 2 years ahead of me at Stonehill. I obviously want to congratulate you, Steve, on your induction. It's pretty cool that when I found out that we were both going in together. I always loved pitching against Kingston, and we'd always connect before. And we always seemed to pitch against each other. Every time Swampscott was playing Kingston, it always seemed to be the two of us on the mound, which I always loved because it gave us an opportunity to reconnect, as we didn't really get to see each other too much, and it pretty much guaranteed us a win. I can't imagine they took into account your record in ERA versus Swampscott, but either way, you made it through. Congratulations. I'm going to go to the next part here. I want to congratulate and recognize actually a few of our competitors. I know for me personally, in the off seasons, the things that fueled my fire were not my teammates, but it was my opponents. There were guys that we play against, and you sit there and you're working out, getting ready for the next season. You say, we got to beat that guy, we got to beat that guy, we can't lose to that guy. I don't think any of them are here. I don't even know if the team exists anymore, but the DeGennaro, Donahue, Amesbury crew, we played those guys, I felt like, in the semifinals of the playoffs every year. Quick story. It was the semifinals. It was a 5-game series. We were down 2-0. We played up at Amesbury High School, and we sat in our dugout and watched them walk. I want to say it was at least 120 beers and a bunch of bottles of champagne because they were about to win the semifinals, not even the finals. And then we beat them 3 games in a row, and they had to keep that stuff on ice for the rest of the season. Corey Moore, I do want to recognize you. I know you just gave me a look, but I promise this is positive. Corey was that guy who came up a few years behind me. I played a few years in the league before Corey came, and when I watched Corey pitch, he was that guy that kind of refueled my fire. And I would watch him and say, man, I gotta get it back. I gotta be more like him. Tough as nails, wanted to win at all costs. So we had an opportunity to take him on our team for the Stan Musials that year. Which was fantastic to have him in our uniform instead of the Phillies uniform for at least a couple games, but I have all the respect in the world for you, Corey. Chris Carroll, obviously, become a good friend of mine over the years, and obviously taking the reins over there with the Phillies and what you did for that team. I'm going to get a little weird here now, but other things that really kind of fueled my fire throughout those seasons, Mr. Keenan's mustache, seeing that thing in the press box, like when you're on the mound at Twy Field and you look up, he's in the press box. For some reason, that just like enraged me. He was always looking down at us and just like, he hated us, and I think we hated him. I don't know why. Mike Giardi, I don't believe he's here, but that dude's ageless. I believe he's still doing it, right? He's still hitting home runs every few games. I was gonna take this opportunity to apologize for hitting him all those times. He was a guy who crowded the plate. I'd always try to throw him in, and most likely I would hit him every time. I was going to apologize, and I realized that I'm actually not sorry at all. And it was just kind of the lesser of two evils. It's going to be a home run or just drill him in the ribs, and he just gets one base. Grids, who was always a class act, whether we won or lost against the champions, he would always come over and give us a great game. Gallo, who I'm psyched you're here. Where are you, Gallo? You're here somewhere. Yeah, he's in the back. I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to spend some time away from your softball world tour that you've been on. I've been following you on Facebook. He's on this insane like men's softball league team, and you have become that guy. You're like that guy that everyone's like, I'm never gonna be that guy. You've become that guy. And it legitimately actually makes your old days of de-icing planes in Kentucky look normal. So, and I'm going to end with Brian Marshall. I hated him. Where are you, Brian? I know you're in here. I hated you, man. I really did. We played against each other in high school. You were so freaking good, but I hated seeing you succeed. I loved seeing you fail. And you legitimately like fueled my fire on every season. He was always complaining about calls. He was that guy that was he was so stinking good that you had to hate him. And we just play him in the finals every year, and it was like Game 7, Peabody Swampscott. Shocker, Marsh is on the mound. Come up with a game-winning hit, a big hit. But you know, as much as I'm busting on some of you guys, the reason I am mentioning you guys is because I do have a profound respect for you guys. You guys are all extremely good players, great competition, and it's part of the reason why I tried to continue playing as long as I did. it was because it was guys like that that you wanted to come back and compete against all the time. And no matter how much you hated them on the field that day, you left, you washed it away, and you said, all right, well, let's come back and do it again the next day. I have some friends and some family here. I told you I was going to be long-winded, so I'm not quite done. But Paul Rapoli, who's here, he's been my boss at RBI since I started working camps with him as a freshman in college, which is about 16, 17 years ago. He allowed me to continue playing in these summers. I worked down in Foxborough, and I was playing up in Swampscott and up on the North Shore. He's been a great mentor to me in my professional career and has become a great friend of mine, and obviously coming up, he lives in Foxborough, so coming up to Beverly is a pain in the butt. And also my man Chris Welch, I shared an office with him for the last 13 years, and he's also one of the main reasons I was able to stay in the league for as long as I did. He's actually a Cranberry League Hall of Famer. He had an incredible speech that I'm certainly not going to match, but Chris just always knew when we worked together that, and I had to leave 20 minutes early from a camp or this or that so I could speed up 95 and get to whatever town we needed to play in. He always understood that. He always likes to brag to people about the time he got this win in the Stan Musial World Series in Huntsville, Texas. I was fortunate enough that the Easton Huskies of the Cranberry League picked me up for a run. We went down to Huntsville, and Chris always tells a story about how he beat Puerto Rico. What he doesn't tell people is that I pitched the first 8 2/3 innings in a 1-1 ball game. He came in, got the last out of the 9th, and then we scored 7 in the top of the 10th, and he got the win. My sisters are here. They've always been a huge support for me. Anything I ask them to come to, they're there. I was going to recognize my nieces, but they didn't come, so they're at some sleepover or something. My mother and father-in-law, Carrie and John, are both here. As Cap said, I just got married in September, and ever since Bridget and I have been together, you guys have been super supportive of me, taking me in as a son right away, and I appreciate you guys, and the fact that you're here tonight speaks volumes to you guys. My wife, Bridget, we just got married September. Funny thing about my wife is that we both went to Stonehill College. We were a few years apart, yet we never knew each other at Stonehill, which means she never saw me play baseball in college. And when we met, I was actually just done playing for Swampscott. So as we stand here, she has never seen me play baseball, which for many of you guys probably understand that's probably why we got married, because she also never saw me drink Bud Lights in the various school parking lots till 2 a.m. after those games, so I call that a win. My dad, who's here, he flew up from Florida to be here tonight. At this time of year, he's always busting my chops and sending me pictures of all the great weather he's having down in Florida, and I couldn't be more excited that you're here this weekend to get this snowstorm. Like many here, my father was my first coach, and he was my best coach. The coaching you receive from your father is certainly a lot different than you receive from everybody else because it expands much further beyond the white lines. The Texas trip I even mentioned, he flew all the way down there with me because he had to pay, you know. He flew all the way down there with me just to see a no decision, right?
ND, baby.
Which was probably a pain in the butt for him, but we had a great time down there. He was a great athlete himself, and I always looked up to him. He's a Hall of Famer at St. John's Prep, played hockey at Boston College, and I always read articles about him and his athletic accomplishments when I was growing up, and I just always knew, you know, that's something I wanted to be. So Dad, thank you for everything you've provided me in life and all the support you've always given me. You know, we always talk as athletes, men, we talk about our dads, but I think our moms don't get enough credit. As I get older, I certainly appreciate my mother and the sacrifices she made in her life, just to give me the best possible upbringing. Many of you don't know this, but my mom literally lives like almost on the field at Swampscott, the middle school. So if you're sitting in the first base dugout and you look behind you, that is her house. So every foul ball that goes over to the first base, it's in her yard. So that's where she lives. So what was perfect for me was I kind of had what we called the Clemens contract for a few years, where I only pitched on Sunday nights at Swampscott Middle School because it was the only games I could make at the time. And so basically my routine was I would go up, you know, sometime on Saturday, and I'd say hi to my mom, I'd meet up with friends, we'd go out somewhere in Salem, get pretty banged up, hang out with the boys, maybe down at Tony's Pub, wake up around 2 o'clock, hang out with my mom again, and then go down and pitch and then we'd get crushed in the parking lot again. And then I'd crash on her couch, and the next morning she would always tell me, "Hey, that was a great game last night." And I'd say, "No, we would have talked about it when I came home, but it was like 3 in the morning." But she always came to my games, was always super supportive of me. So Mom, you certainly don't get enough credit. And one of my favorite things about my mom is she gets like pretty into the games after. Like when she's there, she's not like screaming or anything. But when I do come home and talk to her, she's always like, "Man, that play," or "I can't believe this happened." And she hates Brian Marshall too. So. My teammates. It was incredible to play for the Swampscott Sox. When I got on the team in 2003, I was the young guy by about 10 years in most cases. And when I wrote out a list of the players, I realized that for the majority of my career, obviously I played with a lot more guys than this, but my catcher, third base, shortstop, second base, left field, center field, and manager are all Hall of Famers. So I'm pretty sure I just had to show up on Sunday nights and have a pulse, and I was going to end up in the Hall of Fame somehow. I am a culmination of everything you guys created with the Swampscott Sox. I was just fortunate enough to be a part of it, so thank you for that. I'm going to recognize as many teammates as I can, but I'm going to skip a few guys who decided not to show up, so they don't deserve it. The only one I do want to mention is I know he would have really loved to have been here, Chris Oram. Chris would have ran through a fence for this team. I didn't say he'd actually catch that ball, but he would definitely run through the fence, and it was the least he could do considering, he could never hit the ball out of the infield. I'd always tell Chris, like, "Dude, you got to bunt. You're the fastest guy on the team. You got to bunt." And he would just swing and ground out short every time. Freddie Cole, who's a good friend, and he loves the Swampscott Sox, and you've put a lot of time and effort into this team. Ryan Healy, thank you for taking on the role you did with this team. Obviously, like Cap said, there's some ups and downs, and not everybody can do the same roles every year to keep the team alive, and Ryan kept everything going. Guy not here, Dave Lightbody, I wanted to talk about him. He taught me that eating chicken and broccoli really can help with performance as your career gets longer. It also leads to torn hamstrings, unusual bruising, and back knee. Jason and Brent Tarasuic, who are two of the best athletes the North Shore has ever seen. I've still yet to understand a sentence either one of you guys have said, but you guys are great teammates. Mike Kirk couldn't be here, king of the one-liner. Bob Diedrich. So my first experience with Bob Diedrich, who Kat mentioned, and I know we all bust on Deeds all the time. So I was like 18 years old, and Deeds must have been somewhere in his 40s. He showed up to a 6 p.m. game at Phillips Park at 5:55 with a cigarette in his mouth, put it down in the on-deck circle, not out, down, in the on-deck circle, puts his bag down, walks to the plate, singles up the middle, steals second, Tony hits him in, scores. On his way in, high fives, picks up the puck, puts it back. I swear. That's how I got introduced to Bob Diedrich. Jason Blydell, who's here tonight, the best athlete I've ever played any sport with. This is a guy that, again, gave his entire body to our team. Many a time sitting in our parking lot, cramping up after long days with ice bags on his hamstrings and just lights going down one after the other. So he was cramping because he was dehydrated. So he put ice on his hamstrings and just kept the lights flowing. So I'm not sure the math on that, Jay. But Doug Spofford, the silent assassin, never struck out, never pulled a ball. He was Joey Votto before Joey Votto. Best pure hitter I've ever seen. Raph, I didn't know a guy a foot shorter than me could have hands twice the size of me, but he proved that wrong. The best part about Joe Raff was I could talk crap to the Peabody champions and then just run behind Joe because I wasn't going to beat anybody up. So Raff would just stand in front of me. Rad's actually spent my 25th birthday with me. This was the first date with his now wife. It got real ugly. I called a group of Hell's Angels Charlie's Angels, and then he drove the wrong way down the Callahan Tunnel. That was the first date with his wife, and he's actually still married. Angela Slew Street. If you guys ever see those movies where like a beautiful woman comes out of the ocean and like swings her hair, and it's like, wow, it's a gorgeous woman. That's what Angelo does when he takes off a helmet. It's like his hair has never moved. He's the most handsome man I've ever been around. He's one of the best players this league's ever seen. Tony Nicosia, just an absolute lunatic. He was driving the Bud van. I know Cap didn't want to say it, I'll say it. There's actually, for many of you who've been around our league long enough, We changed jerseys like every 2 years for a period there, and everyone always like, oh, why'd you get new jersey? It was basically just correlating with like the ups and downs of Tony's life at that point. Like he'd have a bad year and we'd have to get new uniforms because he needed a change in his life. And it was just like every couple of years new uniforms because Tony was going through something. Jeff January, I called him off one time. He was my catcher. That ball's still going. Eric Fields. I know we all say we all have great teammates and everyone's good teammate. Eric Fields, you are my #1 teammate of all time. We played Little League together. Every level we can possibly play, we played together. And you, my friend, are my #1 teammate of all time. Papa Smuzz, who is not here, he was the man. For those guys who don't know Papa Smuzz, he basically ran the team with Cap. And I just loved seeing him at the bottom of the 5th. I didn't know this was a thing. But he would, at the bottom of the 5th inning, he would go up and shake every person's hand on the team. And I just thought it was a traditional thing. But what he was talking was like the bottom of the 5th of alcohol. And that was just like a tradition for him. He would shake people's hands because he was now at the bottom of the 5th. Cap is why this, in my opinion, why everyone is sitting in this room right now. It's guys like Joe Caponegro that allow for this league to exist and for all these players to continue playing and love the game. Nobody has been more influential in my baseball career than Joe Caponegro. He said it himself. I mean, the guy had shoulder surgery yesterday. I can't imagine the amount of medication you're on right now, which is probably why the mic is down here. Cap, I love you. There's nobody I can thank more than you for everything you've done for me. I do want to conclude with something a little more serious, and I promise I'll get the heck out of here. I want to conclude with a message to any of the younger players in the room that are still playing in this league. Commit. Just fully commit, immerse yourself into your team and into your teammates. This is not a league where college players should go and just get at bats and get their work in. This is a league where you play for your teammates. You play to live a competitive life, and you play to win a championship with and for your team. Play as long as you can and try to play a few more years after that. You'll know when it's time to call it, but until then, make the necessary sacrifices because your time in this game is limited and your time with your teammates is too. I know I've joked around a lot, but I do truly appreciate this honor. I loved playing in this league. I loved playing with you guys in the Swampscott Sox. Thank you so much.